I'm swollen.
I may never march in the infantry, ride in the cavalry, shoot the artillery. I may never zoom on the enemy, but I'm in the Lord's army.
Just look at it as I stretch it.
So the Nintendo Switch, it's been out June 5th. I even waited in a Best Buy line to get one. Ask me how much I've played it. I have no issue with it. I just haven't had time. So it was well worth waiting in line for 6 hours for a console I maybe have played 20 minutes of. But nonetheless, the Switch 2 has been out. I am excited for it. Eventually, I'll get time to play some games on it. And there is trouble in paradise. Now, of course, let me just preface this. All hardware is going to have a percentage that is defective out of the factory, okay? But to see these issues arise again when we know that the original Switch had similar problems makes it more concerning than it would be if it was just, oh, here's a random defective console. Anyway, here are the issues that are arising, and one of them is just Nintendo being a turd as well. Let's start off with possible battery swelling. The reason why I say possible, well, actually, I'll get into that in a second. If you remember back in 2018, I actually had this issue with my original Switch. There were people reporting that the back was starting to swell, possibly being a battery issue, which is a major problem because that could be a fire hazard. I noticed that with my Switch. I saw the swell in the back of it, and I had to exchange it and get a new one. Well, it seems that problem is happening again. There was someone from Japan that posted on Twitter that they were seeing the back bulge on their Switch 2, and there was someone else that saw a bulge with their Switch 2. Here is the picture from the Switch 2 owner in Japan. You could see there's definitely a bulge. Now, keep in mind, the battery isn't located where you're seeing this bulge, so that's something interesting. But nonetheless, maybe if the battery is bulging and maybe the way it stretches the plastic, maybe you would see it in this spot, even though the battery isn't located there. Nonetheless, Nintendo is saying bring back the console and make sure you get a new one, because if it is the battery, that could be a major problem. That's not the only person that was seeing this bulge on their Switch 2. Another Reddit user as well posted that their Switch 2 had a swollen back as well, which again could possibly be the battery. Here is Tommy T3, I think I'm saying his username right, on Reddit posting his Switch 2 with a swollen back. Now, again, this could just be the exception and not the rule, but nonetheless, it's still something to take note of, especially because the original Switch, not to a huge degree, but it did have the same issue. I had the issue. So that's why I'm like, this is definitely video worthy and something to pay attention to. Nonetheless, let's see what happens. If we don't hear about the swollen backs on the Switch 2 ever again, it was an outlier. But this, I don't think, is going to be an outlier. There's already people experiencing Joy-Con drift with the Switch 2. Now, we learned that Nintendo was not putting Hall effect sensors into the Joy-Cons of the Switch 2, which to me is insane, but I guess they were looking to cut costs. And there are people now out of the box, as soon as they take the Switch 2 out, that they're experiencing Joy-Con drift. Here's a Reddit user named Nearly Crossing showing that their Switch 2 out of the box had Joy-Con drift. Take a look. So as you're seeing there's definitely an issue with that person's Joy-Con. Now, again, you may think this is just an outlier, not a big deal, but here is something that is wild. Nintendo is already offering Switch 2 Joy-Con free replacements if you get Joy-Con drift. Like this, they started this program basically right after the Switch launched. So Nintendo absolutely knows that something is up with the Switch 2 Joy-Cons. So come on, man, we're going down the same road again. And this was a major issue with the original Switch with the Joy-Cons. There was even class action lawsuits regarding the Joy-Con drift with the original Switch. Now the Switch 2 Joy-Cons are going to have the same thing. it's going to be a disaster. It doesn't matter if they're offering free fixes or replacements. It would be better if we didn't have to deal with the inconvenience of our Joy-Cons. Some people right out of the box going bad as soon as they start using their Switch 2. And we know this was a problem. And again, the Switch 2 just launched. We most likely with other consoles or other things, it would be considered a nothing burger. But when you see the Switch 2 having similar symptoms, like with the Joy-Cons, like with the swollen battery, even though it may not be a swollen battery, it makes you take pause and notice these issues more with the Switch 2, especially when we've been down this road. So if you also remember, there was that MIG flash card for the original Nintendo Switch, which allowed you to rip your own games or get them other ways for the Switch, put them on this SD card, put the cartridge into the Switch, and you could play whatever game you would like. Obviously, we know it can be used for piracy, but nonetheless, you should feel like you own your own hardware, correct? Well, with the MIG being put into the Switch 2, people's consoles are being banned. They can't access the internet. This is what a Twitter user posted when they tried their MIG flash card in their Switch 2, and the results they got back weren't good. This is what they had to say. My Switch 2 test has been banned. After using the MIG Switch with perfectly legal dumps of my own cartridges, Nintendo doesn't care. So it would seem that Nintendo can detect something. Similar reports on Reddit are starting to come in. I strongly recommend that you do not use the MIG Switch. It was already very risky to use it, but it is even more so on the Switch 2. Now, I know with the MIG, you can argue, and it is a contentious topic, that one way you look at it, it's a piracy device. We know that you could go online and get the ROMs for the Switch, put them on an SD card, put them in the MIG, and you're playing games that you don't own. But then there's people that will argue is that, look, okay, yes, it can be used for that, but it's also a backup tool. Say I like collecting my Switch games. I know people that do this, and they like them for having the physical cartridge. They like them for the box art. They like to just know they have this actual physical collection of games, which is soon to go away. We all know that. And that's why they use the MIG Switch cartridge or the MIG flash card. So it can be used for piracy. It can be used just to back up your own Switch games. The bottom line is, though, Nintendo just looks at it as, hey, you're using it as a piracy device, and they can detect it, and they will ban your console from going online, which Nintendo already warned that they would do. Doesn't mean it doesn't suck, though. Now, that's something, like I said, that is an argument that we could have back and forth if something like that should be allowed, and there's very vocal voices on both sides of the argument. But let's go back to the battery swelling maybe on the Switch 2. Why are we totally away from with devices that aren't water resistant or waterproof? Okay. Why are we going against the, hey, let's just not have it so the battery can be replaced by the user? I don't understand it. Like, I do understand it. They want the devices to essentially be throwaway, so you have to buy another one in a few years if you're lucky, okay? Because sometimes those lithium-ion batteries go quicker. But it's just so anti-consumer, and it just makes so much e-waste. I know people will argue that, oh, you could just unscrew it and open it, but by the time your Switch is swelling, this happened to my Switch. It actually happened to my kid's Switch as well, the original one. By the time that thing was swollen, it was like, all right, that's it. It is like, it's defective. You could replace the battery, but the housing, the plastic was curved. It's like, it's junk. But it just frustrates, even with laptops too. What is it with laptops not having replaceable batteries? I hate this. Like, I look at things like, excuse me a second. I have a Game Boy Advanced SP. Needed a new battery recently. You know what I did? I went on Amazon, got a new battery, unscrewed here, popped the new battery in, and now it has a fresh battery in the Game Boy Advance SP. That's a small device from the early 2000s. We have devices now that are way more advanced, and we have found ways to shrink technology significantly since then. Why can't we now have replaceable batteries where you still have sleek, sexy hardware, which I know everyone's concerned about, and still be able to replace the battery when it goes bad? Or if nothing else, especially with how crappy the battery life is on the Switch 2, Nintendo, you can make a killing selling official batteries that people could just swap them in and out on the Switch 2. Like, God. And now let's get to the Joy-Con drift. Let's get to the Joy-Con drift on the Switch 2 with the Joy-Con 2s. It's already happening now. Nintendo already started a program that if your Switch 2 Joy-Cons have drift, you could get them fixed. Don't tell me they don't know that there's going to be a problem. There absolutely is. And they should have went with Hall effect sensors, but I know what happened behind the scenes. Someone in accounting said, what would be more cost effective, fixing the Joy-Con 2s or actually putting in Hall effect sensors? And I guess it would be a more cost effective measure to just keep fixing the Joy-Cons. But that's still another anti-consumer move. I can't stand it. So does this mean you shouldn't buy a Switch 2? I leave that up to you. Again, let's see where these hardware failures go and see if they become rampant. But my concern mostly is with the Joy-Con 2s and their stick drift, because it seems like it's going to be a major issue again. And maybe Nintendo is going to have some more class action lawsuits on their hands, even with that arbitration clause that's in their end user license agreement. Maybe there's some workaround that lawyers could find that there could still be a class action lawsuit, or maybe not. And maybe Nintendo will get away with it again, essentially. We'll have to wait and see. This is Rich Tomorrow signing out with a swollen bird. Have a good one.
I may never march in the infantry, ride in the cavalry, shoot the artillery. I may never zoom on the enemy, but I'm in the Lord's army.
Hey, if you watched the whole video, what the hell are you doing? You're not subbed yet? Click that sub button. I live stream here all the time. We have a good time. Make sure to become a subscriber. It's free. Click the button now and hit that bell too. Be a man.